Hi, Simon here. I want to share with you an actual conversation that took place just a couple of days ago. I've got a client, lovely lady. Her name is Julie, name changed to protect her. But Julie's a wonderful lady. She's an HR director, and we were having a conversation about a challenge that she had on her hands. Now, one of the operational HR people in her organisation, called him Bill, again, name changed to protect him, was not kind of coming on board with what Julie was proposing. And they'd had a bit of a ding-dong series of discussions over quite a long period where the conversation was getting a little bit frosty. And we weren't getting anywhere. And every time they came back to this particular issue, which was about the introduction of an assessment and leadership development type of process into the business, they were, I won't say loggerheads, but it certainly wasn't getting anywhere. So it was a difficult situation for them. Now, in my work, I often get involved in training to large audiences, small groups, and occasionally the privilege of work one-to-one. And Julie gave me the opportunity to have a natter with her. So when I do this kind of work, what I like to do is to actually see how people genuinely behave. And because of my training in something called behaviour analysis, which can be quite irritating for people, I know how to look specifically at individual words and phrases and then explore the impact these words and phrases have on a particular conversation. And of course, when you're persuading powerful people, it's really important that your dialogue is pretty useful. In this particular case, as we subsequently found out, some of the words that she was using, and in particular three little words, were not being particularly helpful. And as we explored a little bit later on, she'd been using these for years and years and years. They become a habit, which we suddenly have. But the impact of that, which she didn't realise until we talked about it, was entirely counterproductive. Let me explain what I mean. So what I did was I played the role of Bill. And I said, well, you give me enough information about Bill, I'll play his role, I'll see if I understand the situation, and then you see if you can persuade me. So Julie was up for that. And I don't call this role play, I do call it rehearsal. Because in real world, it's like going on stage, you need to rehearse your lines. So by the time you go live, it looks good, sounds good, feels good, and it's kind of you. So rehearsals are incredibly important, especially when you need to undo particular habits, which, as she subsequently found out, are pretty counterproductive. So we got into this discussion. I was playing Bill, and she kind of got into it. And then she turned around to me. She said, "Bill," she said, we seemed a bit discriminating. And I said, "Yeah, well, obviously we're a bit polarising." She said, and then she said these three words. She said, "Don't you think?" And then went on to describe that. And we let the conversation play out, and it was a bit awkward, a bit difficult, but we got to the end and we stopped it. And then the way I did it is, well, let's go back and unpack and replay exactly what it is that we talked through, and to see if there were certain things that you did which caused me to be resistant or have an entrenched attitude, or certainly maybe sort of kick back and say, no, I disagree with that even more. And I actually felt myself getting quite defensive when she used those words, don't you think? So let's explore what that actually means. When you use the expression, when anybody uses the expression, don't you think, you're effectively communicating to the other person what I think is right and what you think is wrong. Now, I know that sounds a little bit odd and a bit awkward, and if you use the expression, don't you think, you probably don't realise that, but actually that's exactly what you're doing. The expression, don't you think, effectively makes you think, I'm right and you're wrong. Now, I don't know too many people who like to be told they're wrong. I generally don't, and I certainly know I don't. And what had happened was she had put up that barrier. I'd come back with, well, oh, hold on a minute, and you're saying, no, I don't think that at all, actually. I think the way I want to think. And he got nowhere. And what happens if you set up these, um, I've got an argument bigger than yours, no, my argument's bigger than yours, you get this sort of ding dong, ding dong, ding dong on fight. And eventually you can actually, if you go badly wrong, you can start to cause resistance, resentment, and, well, I've had enough of this and I'll walk away. Now, if you've got that one moment of truth where you're trying to persuade a powerful person in a sales environment, that could be your last chance. I mean, seriously, it could be the last chance you get. That person walks out, that's it, you've blown it. Now, in this particular case, these guys work together, so she had lots of opportunities to come back, but certainly in the sales environment, you just don't get an opportunity. So what I would suggest to you is the expression, don't you think, is not particularly useful. So what I did then was, I went back and I said to Julie, what you might want to try something along these lines, and it goes along the lines of, well, Bill, as I see it, um, you've got a view about life which is kind of differs from mine. And I guess if I was seeing the world through your eyes with your experiences, I would probably be thinking the same way. Now, at this particular moment in time, I don't agree, but I genuinely respect the fact that you are looking at the world different ways, because it's a good thing that we actually have different views. What I'm really interested to understand, Bill, is what are your experiences which cause you to think that way? What has happened which led you to think in a certain way that is causing this difficulty between us? Because if I can understand that, then maybe we can find a way to move forward. Would that be okay? Now, those words, or the way that I've positioned it, are actually quite carefully thought through. They're also a reflection of what a lot of very influential people do, because they don't accept just the behaviour, they try and kind of get behind it, but they do maintain rapport, they do maintain respect, and they're not actually saying, I'm giving in with you, I'm accepting your opinion, I'm saying, you have an opinion, it differs from mine, but there's probably a damn good reason why you've got it. Now I need to understand that, because if I can understand that, then maybe we can get to the root cause behind the fact that we've got this conflict and do something about it. So my advice to you, if you're watching this, is if you do find yourself saying the words, don't you think, you should really be thinking quite carefully and deeply about actually stopping using those and replace them with something better. And I'll give you an example of what you can do. And I genuinely hope you do that, because as we've just discovered and we've explored, if you use expressions don't you think, you're in danger of causing more arguments, entrenched position, people being resistant, and ultimately the thing you really don't want, which is people to get defensive. And in this sales scenario, if people are getting defensive, that could be the end of it. Thank you.